Everyone in my family was invited to my sister's $750,000 wedding. Everyone except me. And Mom claimed I'd ruin her dream day. I said, fair enough. Then my Paris wedding photo went totally viral. Can you imagine being told, plain as day, that your presence at your own sister's wedding would just be complicated? Like I was some kind of inconvenient truth. That's what my own mother said, her voice so casual, so utterly devoid of warmth, that it still echoes in my mind sometimes. It shattered something inside me, but what happened next wasn't what anyone expected. My name is Juliet, and I was 27. I sat there on their fancy floral couch in Charleston, trying to keep my hands from trembling as Mom laid it all out. Vivian's dream wedding isn't about you, Juliet. It's about her perfect day. And frankly, your presence would just be complicated. The afternoon light streamed through the window, making everything look so peaceful, but her words felt like a gut punch. For years, I'd convinced myself that being the overlooked daughter was just my lot in life. My younger sister, Vivian, 3 years my junior, was always the golden child. Prettier, charming, more successful in my parents' eyes. She snagged a high-paying marketing job, married a wealthy investment banker named Gregory, and lived in a pristine townhouse my mother couldn't stop bragging about. But this was different. This wasn't just my birthday being overshadowed or being forgotten at Christmas. This was a deliberate exclusion from what Mom kept calling the event of the decade. Complicated how? I managed to ask, my voice surprisingly steady despite the knot forming in my stomach. Mom sighed, as if explaining basic arithmetic to a toddler. Vivian has invited 300 guests. Everyone who matters will be there. The venue alone cost them $75,000. She's wearing a custom Vera Wang. There will be photographers from 2 bridal magazines. This isn't some backyard barbecue, Juliet. This is a statement. Then came the killer blow. And you would ruin that statement. You know how you are. You know how you are. That phrase hit me harder than anything else. It meant, you never quite fit. You're always in your jeans and that old camera bag. Vivian's friends are all polished, put-together people. You'd feel uncomfortable anyway. A part of me wanted to scream, to argue. To tell her I own nice dresses, that I could look presentable, that being a freelance photographer didn't make me a social pariah. But I knew the truth. This wasn't about my wardrobe. This was about hierarchy. This was about keeping me in my place, reminding me where I belonged in their carefully constructed world. Does Vivian know you're telling me this? I asked, watching for any flicker of emotion. My mother's expression barely changed. We discussed it as a family. Your father agrees it's for the best. And, honestly, Juliet, you should be relieved. $750,000 for a wedding? That's the kind of pressure you wouldn't want to be around anyway. $750,000. The number was obscene. More than I had earned in the past 5 years combined. They were spending it on a single day. A single event I wasn't allowed to witness because I might somehow tarnish it with my very existence. I stood up slowly, grabbing my camera bag. My mother watched me with that same calm, reasonable expression. I understand, I said, my voice quiet. She looked almost relieved. I knew you would. You've always been so sensible about these things. Sensible. That was her word for compliant. For accepting whatever scraps of affection the family tossed my way. As I walked towards the door, my boots making soft sounds on the hardwood floor, something shifted inside me. Just before I reached it, I turned back. When is it? The wedding. June 15th. But Juliet, I really think it's better if, I just wanted to know for my calendar, I interrupted, cutting off her inevitable lecture. I left before she could say another word. Driving away from their pristine colonial house, I felt a new kind of clarity. Cold, sharp. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was a stark understanding of exactly where I stood in this family and what I was worth to them. June 15th was 3 months away. 3 months they would spend preparing for Vivian's perfect day, while I was expected to simply disappear. To make myself conveniently absent so no one would have to explain why the older sister wasn't there. I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot and sat in my car, staring at my phone. I opened my banking app. $4,300. Not much, but it was mine. Money I had earned through my own work, my own skill. An idea began to form. Something reckless, bold, completely unlike the sensible, compliant Juliet my mother expected. If they didn't want me at Vivian's perfect wedding, fine. But that didn't mean I had to spend that day alone in my apartment, scrolling through social media photos of an event I was banned from attending. I opened my laptop and started researching. The idea grew over the next few weeks, consuming my thoughts during quiet moments between photography jobs. I had always wanted to visit Paris. It was the kind of dream I'd tucked away, something perpetually out of reach. But as I looked at my savings and did the math, I realized it was possible. Barely, but possible. Growing up, Vivian and I had been close for a brief, blissful window. Before the favoritism became too obvious to ignore. I remembered building blanket forts, sharing secrets. But somewhere around middle school, things shifted. Vivian discovered she had power, that our parents would always choose her version of events. She could get what she wanted by playing the victim. When I was 15, I saved for a professional camera. When it arrived, Vivian threw a tantrum about how I got something expensive while she got nothing. Within a week, my parents bought her a laptop that cost twice what my camera did. The pattern was set. In college, I worked part-time jobs. Vivian got a brand new car for her 18th birthday. My parents said their contribution to my education should be enough. After graduation, I struggled to build my photography business, while Vivian landed her marketing job and immediately started making more money than I could dream of. Their pride in her was palpable. Meanwhile, I was invisible unless they needed me to photograph family events for free or watch their house. I should have been angrier. Beneath everything, I was. But mostly, I was tired. Tired of hoping they might someday see me as equally valuable. Tired of making myself smaller so Vivian could shine brighter. 2 weeks after my mother's announcement, the official wedding invitation arrived. Addressed to my parents, it listed who from the family was invited. Everyone. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. Everyone except me. The omission was deliberate. Documented. I stared at that heavy cardstock with its gold embossing. Something crystallized inside me. This wasn't an oversight. This was a statement about my worth in this family. That evening, I called my best friend, Kara. We'd met at a photography workshop and stayed close despite living in different cities. She was one of the few who understood my family dynamics without judgment. They didn't invite you? Kara's voice rose in disbelief. To your own sister's wedding? Apparently, I'm a distraction from her perfect day. That's insane. What are you going to do? I took a breath. I'm thinking about going to Paris that weekend. Silence. Then tell me more. I explained my research. There was a photographer in Paris who did high-end bridal-style shoots for travelers. Custom gown, professional hair and makeup, sunrise shoot at the Eiffel Tower. It was expensive, but I could afford it if I was careful. You want to have your own wedding shoot, without a wedding? Kara asked. Why not? If they're going to exclude me from family events, I might as well create my own moments. And I'm a photographer. I know the power of a good image. Kara laughed. I love this. I absolutely love this. When do we leave? You think I'm letting you do this alone? I have vacation days saved up. Let me look at flights. That conversation changed everything. Suddenly, it wasn't just a fantasy. It was a real plan, with a real friend who believed in me. I spent the next month working extra jobs, accepting every assignment. My savings account slowly grew. I researched Paris, found Isabelle, a photographer who specialized in exactly the kind of shoot I envisioned. When I contacted her, explaining my unusual request, she was enthusiastic. She had a dress designer friend who could create a custom gown. She knew the perfect locations. The dress alone would be $1,500. The photography package, another $2,000. Flights and hotel for Kara and me, roughly $3,000. Hair and makeup, $300. It all added up to more money than I had ever spent on myself. But every time I hesitated, I thought about that invitation with my name conspicuously absent. My mother's casual dismissal, her certainty that I would simply accept being erased from this family milestone. 3 weeks before Vivian's wedding, I booked everything. It was happening. I didn't tell my family. They didn't ask what I would be doing that weekend anyway. I'm sure they assumed I'd spend it quietly at home, not making any waves. But I told Kara everything, and she was almost more excited than I was. This trip became something bigger than just a response to being excluded. It became an act of reclaiming my own narrative. My phone buzzed one evening. A text from Vivian, the first direct communication since the wedding planning began. Mom said you understood about the wedding. I appreciate you being mature about it. It's nothing personal. Nothing personal. As if excluding your only sibling from the biggest day of your life was just a practical decision. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, I hope you have a beautiful day. I meant it, in a way. I hoped she got everything she wanted from her extravagant celebration, because I was about to get something too. The week before the trip, my nerves kicked in hard. Was I being petty? Was this just expensive revenge that would leave me broke and hollow? But then my mother called, and those doubts evaporated. Vivian is so stressed, she launched in. The final alterations on her dress aren't quite right. And the florist had to substitute 2 types of roses. Can you imagine? That sounds frustrating, I said carefully. She's handling it well, though. She's such a professional. Gregory's mother is hosting a luncheon tomorrow for the wedding party and immediate family. It should be lovely. Immediate family. A category I apparently no longer belong to. I'm sure it will be nice, I said. Are you working that weekend? The wedding weekend. There was something in her tone that made me think she actually hoped I would be busy, that I'd have some concrete excuse for my absence that would make the whole situation feel less cruel. I have plans, I said. Oh, good. I'm glad you'll have something to occupy yourself with. After we hung up, I pulled out my suitcase. Kara flew in 2 days before we left, staying with me so we could travel together. The dress designer had sent confirmation photos of the completed gown, and it was breathtaking. A flowing ivory creation with delicate beading, everything I had envisioned. This is going to be incredible, Kara said, scrolling through Isabel's portfolio. Look at these shots. You're going to look like you stepped out of a magazine. I looked at the images. Stunning women in beautiful gowns at iconic Paris locations. In 2 days, that would be me. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. Do you think I'm being vindictive? I asked. Kara put down her tablet. Seriously? I think you're being human. They excluded you from a major family event and expected you to just disappear quietly. You're not crashing the wedding or trying to ruin anything. You're simply living your life in a way that brings you joy. That's not vindictive. That's survival. We flew out Thursday evening, landing in Paris early Friday morning. Exhausted, but electric. The city was everything I'd imagined. Our hotel was a small boutique place near the Eiffel Tower. After checking in, we met Isabel. She was warm, enthusiastic. The dress arrived yesterday, she said, leading us to a back room where it hung on a mannequin. It was even more beautiful in person. We'll begin at 5:30 tomorrow morning. The light at sunrise is perfect, and there will be fewer tourists. Hair and makeup starts at 4. I knew it was early, but I trusted her. That evening, Kara and I walked around Paris, grabbed dinner, and wandered along the Seine. I tried not to think about what was happening back home. Wedding guests arriving in Charleston. Vivian having a spa day. My parents hosting, playing the role of perfect in-laws. And I was here in Paris, about to create something entirely my own. At 3:30 a.m., we stumbled out of bed. The hair and makeup artist transformed me. By 5 a.m., dressed in the ivory gown, I felt like a different person. Kara kept taking photos with her phone, grinning. You look like a princess. Vivian's going to die when she sees these. If she sees them, I corrected. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with the photos yet. That was partly true. Part of me wanted to post them publicly, a visible reminder that I existed and could create beauty without their permission. But another part wanted to keep them private, a secret rebellion only I would fully understand. Isabel picked us up, and we drove to the Trocadero Gardens. The sky was just beginning to lighten, a soft pink glow on the horizon. The Eiffel Tower stood before us, dramatic and iconic. Perfect, Isabel murmured, already assessing angles. For the next 2 hours, we moved through the gardens. Isabel directed me with professional expertise. Kara assisted with the veil and dress train. It was magic. There was no other word for it. As the sun rose, golden light spreading, I forgot about being excluded from Vivian's wedding. I forgot about being the overlooked daughter. In that moment, I was simply Juliet, standing in one of the most beautiful cities in the world, looking exactly how I wanted to look. When Isabel finally lowered her camera, she smiled. "We have something very special. I can feel it." We changed locations for a few more shots, near the Seine and at a picturesque bridge. By 8 a.m., we were finished. Exhausted, but exhilarated. Back at the hotel, I carefully hung the dress. Kara and I collapsed onto our beds. "That was unreal," Kara said. "Seriously, Juliet, you just created art." I smiled, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not happiness, exactly, but validation. Proof that I could create my own beautiful moments without needing my family's approval or inclusion. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "Wedding day. Everything looks perfect." I didn't respond. Instead, I closed my eyes and let myself drift to sleep, satisfied in a way I couldn't quite articulate. Tomorrow, I would see the photos. Tomorrow, I would decide what to do with them. Tomorrow, everything might change, but for now, I rested, knowing I had done something brave and beautiful and entirely for myself. We spent the rest of Saturday exploring Paris, but my mind kept drifting back to Charleston. By now, Vivian's ceremony had started. I imagined the venue, the 300 guests, my parents playing their perfect roles. And nobody would mention me. If they did, my parents probably had a vague, dismissive answer. Kara noticed my distraction. "You're thinking about it." "Hard not to," I admitted. "I keep wondering if anyone even noticed I'm not there." "Their loss," Kara said firmly. "And honestly, after what we did this morning, after those photos we're going to see tomorrow, you won. You already won." I wanted to believe her. But there was a hollow feeling in my chest. It wasn't jealousy of Vivian's wedding. It was grief for the family relationship I had always wanted but never had. Grief for being the daughter who wasn't worth including. Sunday morning, we met Isabel at her studio to review the photos. She pulled up the first image and I gasped. It was me, but somehow more than me. The morning light created an almost otherworldly glow. The Eiffel Tower rose behind me, perfectly framed. The dress flowed around me like water, frozen in time. My expression was serene, confident, beautiful in a way I had never seen myself before. "Keep going," Kara breathed, leaning forward. Isabel clicked through image after image. Each one was stunning. "These are professional quality," I said, my voice catching. "These could be in magazines." Isabel smiled. "They should be. You have a gift for the camera, Juliet. You understood the assignment. You embodied the vision." We selected the best images for final editing. Isabel promised to have them ready by Tuesday, our last full day in Paris. As we left, Kara grabbed my arm. "You need to post these. I know you're hesitant, but these are too good to keep private." "I don't know," I said. "What if it seems like I'm trying to upstage Vivian? What if it does?" Kara challenged. "She excluded you from her wedding. She doesn't get to control how you spend your time or what you share about your own life. These photos aren't about her. They're about you." We spent Sunday and Monday being tourists, but my mind kept returning to those images. Kara was right. They were too beautiful to hide. And more than that, I had worked hard for them. I had saved money, planned extensively, taken a risk. Why should I diminish my own achievement because it might overshadow my sister? By Monday evening, I had made a decision. When Isabel sent the final edited images Tuesday morning, I would post one. Not to hurt Vivian, but simply to share something I was proud of. If my family had a problem with that, well, they should have thought about that before excluding me. Tuesday afternoon, the edited photos arrived. They were even more stunning. I spent an hour choosing which one to post. Finally, I settled on an image taken right as the sun broke the horizon. I stood in profile, looking toward the Eiffel Tower, the dress catching golden light. The composition was perfect, the mood both romantic and powerful. Now came the caption. I typed and deleted several versions. Finally, I settled on something simple. No invite needed to shine brighter. I stared at those words for a long time. They were pointed enough that my family would understand the reference, but vague enough that most people wouldn't. It was my truth, delivered with grace rather than rage. I posted it to Instagram at 7 p.m. Paris time, which was 1 p.m. in Charleston. Vivian's wedding had been Saturday, so by now she would be on her honeymoon, or at least in the post-wedding glow. I closed the app immediately, too nervous to watch the reactions. Kara and I went to dinner, trying to distract ourselves. But by the time we got back to the hotel 2 hours later, my phone was exploding. The post had already gotten over 2,000 likes, far more than anything I had ever posted. Comments were pouring in, stunning. Paris goals. You look like a fairy tale princess. I scrolled through dozens of similar comments, my heart racing. Then I saw messages from people I actually knew. Distant cousins, old school friends, professional contacts. All expressing amazement. But nothing from my immediate family. Not my parents, not Vivian. Radio silence from the people who should have cared most. It's going viral, Kara said, looking at her own phone. Look, someone already shared it to a wedding inspiration page. They're calling it solo bridal photo shoot and asking if this is a new trend. I checked the share count, over 300 and climbing. Within the wedding photography community I followed, people were talking about it. Someone had tagged several bridal magazines. This is insane, I whispered. This is actually going viral. Kara grinned. You created something people respond to. This is what happens when genuine emotion meets professional quality. People can feel the authenticity. We stayed up late watching the numbers climb. By midnight Paris time, the post had 5,000 likes and had been shared over 1,000 times. A major wedding blog had reached out, asking to feature it. 2 photographers wanted to know who had shot it so they could credit Isabel. A dress designer asked about the gown. Still nothing from my family. I went to bed that night with my phone buzzing constantly. It should have felt triumphant, but instead I felt strangely empty. I had wanted validation, proof that I mattered, and I was getting it from thousands of strangers. But the people whose recognition I craved most remained silent. Wednesday morning, we packed for our flight home. My post was still gaining traction. Overnight, it had been picked up by a major lifestyle website with millions of followers. They had written a short article about the solo wedding shoot trend, featuring my photo prominently. The numbers were staggering now. Over 15,000 likes, nearly 5,000 shares, comments in multiple languages. People were asking where to book similar shoots, sharing their own stories of being excluded. I had unintentionally tapped into something bigger than my personal grievance. It resonated with people who had felt overlooked, dismissed, or excluded. My photo wasn't just pretty. It represented reclaiming your own narrative when others tried to write you out of the story. On the flight home, exhaustion caught up with me. I slept most of the way, my phone on airplane mode. Kara kept checking her phone during layovers, giving me updates. A bridal magazine wants to interview you, she reported. And someone from a morning show reached out. They want to do a segment on solo celebration shoots. That's crazy. I'm not qualified to speak about trends, I said. I just wanted nice photos. You started something, Kara insisted. Whether you meant to or not. We landed in Charleston late Wednesday evening. I had several missed calls from my mother and a string of texts from Vivian. I didn't read them. Too tired to deal with whatever storm was brewing. Thursday morning, my phone rang. My mother. I considered ignoring it, but after the 4th call I answered. Juliet, what on earth were you thinking? Her voice was sharp with anger. Good morning to you too, I said, sitting up. Don't be flippant. You posted that ridiculous photo during Vivian's wedding. Do you have any idea how inappropriate that was? I posted it on Monday, I corrected. 2 days after the wedding. It doesn't matter when you posted it. It's everywhere now. People keep sending it to Vivian asking if you're her sister, asking why you weren't at the wedding. You've completely overshadowed her special day. I felt a surge of anger, hot and sharp. Her special day that I wasn't invited to. Her wedding that we explained the situation. This was Vivian's time to shine. And you couldn't even give her that. You had to make it about yourself. I went to Paris, I said, my voice dangerously calm. I took photos that I'm proud of. I posted one picture to my personal Instagram account. How is any of that about Vivian? Because the timing was the only weekend I could afford the trip. I interrupted. Or did you expect me to schedule my entire life around an event I wasn't allowed to attend? Silence on the other end. Then, tightly, Vivian is very upset. Vivian excluded me from her wedding without a conversation or explanation. I'm sorry if my life existing publicly upset her, but that's not my problem. This is exactly why we didn't invite you, my mother snapped. This kind of attitude, this need for attention. You've always been jealous of your sister. I've never been jealous, I said, and I meant it. I've been hurt. I've been dismissed. I've been treated as less important my entire life. But I'm not jealous. And I'm done apologizing for existing. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking. In all my years of accepting their treatment, I had never directly confronted my mother like that. It felt simultaneously empowering and terrifying. Within an hour, Vivian called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. You sabotaged my wedding, she said immediately, her voice thick with tears or rage or both. I wasn't even in the same country as your wedding, I replied. You know what I mean. Everyone is talking about your stupid Paris photos instead of my wedding. I spent 3 months planning every detail, and you ruined it with one attention-seeking post. Vivian, I didn't do anything to you. I took photos in Paris. That's it. During my wedding weekend. You planned it specifically to take attention away from me. Actually, I planned it because it was the only weekend I wasn't expected to participate in family events, I said. Since I wasn't invited to yours, Mom explained why. No, I cut her off. Mom made excuses. There's a difference. You wanted me excluded, and you got what you wanted. But you don't get to control what I do with my own life and my own social media. I barely got any engagement on my wedding photos. Vivian cried, definitely crying now. 200 likes. My wedding photographer's posts got even less. But your stupid fake wedding shoot has gone viral. Do you know how that feels? Part of me wanted to feel sympathy. But a larger part felt nothing but cold satisfaction. I imagine it feels like being told you're not good enough to attend your sister's wedding, I said quietly. Like being erased from family photos and events. Like being the eternal disappointment who never quite measures up. So yes, Vivian, I know exactly how that feels. She hung up on me. I sat on my couch, staring at my phone, feeling both vindicated and hollowed out. This was what I wanted, wasn't it? For them to see me, to acknowledge my existence, to feel some consequence for how they treated me. But it didn't feel as good as I thought it would. My phone buzzed with a text from Kara. Are you okay? Saw your Instagram comments. Your family found out. I replied, yeah, they're mad, but I'm okay. Kara, good. You did nothing wrong. Remember that. I spent the rest of the day catching up on work emails and trying to ignore the continued explosion of my Instagram post. It had passed 20,000 likes. Multiple blogs featured it. 2 more magazines reached out. A wedding planning company wanted to sponsor similar shoots. Asked if I'd be interested in becoming a brand ambassador. It was surreal. I had gone to Paris to create one beautiful moment for myself. And somehow, I had accidentally launched a social media movement. People were posting their own solo celebration photos using hashtags like #ShineWithoutPermission and #MyOwnNarrative. Friday afternoon, an unknown number called. Is this Juliet? This is Melissa from Bridal Dreams magazine. We'd love to feature your photo shoot in our next issue and do a full interview. Bridal Dreams magazine, one of the biggest bridal publications in the country. The same magazine that had allegedly sent photographers to cover Vivian's wedding. I'm interested, I heard myself say. What would that involve? As Melissa explained, I realized this was bigger than I had imagined. A 4-page spread. Professional treatment. My story told in my own words. They were calling it a new kind of celebration, when you're your own guest of honor. After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence. Then I started laughing. Not cruel laughter, but the kind born from disbelief and irony. Vivian had spent $750,000 to get magazine coverage for her wedding, and I had accidentally gotten it with one Instagram post and a $5,000 trip to Paris. The magazine interview was scheduled for the following week. In the meantime, my Instagram post continued its trajectory. It hit 40,000 likes, then 60,000. Brands started reaching out, offering sponsorships and collaborations. A travel company wanted to create a solo celebration package based on my experience. A dress designer wanted to collaborate on a line of non-wedding formal wear for women celebrating themselves. I was overwhelmed. I was a freelance photographer who could barely afford rent. And suddenly, I had opportunities that could change my financial situation entirely. But more than the money or attention, I felt seen. Thousands of people understood what I had done and why it mattered. My family, however, was spiraling. Saturday morning, my father called. Unlike my mother, he wasn't yelling. He sounded tired. "Juliet, can we talk in person?" I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop near my apartment. When I arrived, he looked older than I remembered. The stress of the past week showed on his face. "Thank you for coming. What did you want to talk about?" He sighed, stirring his coffee unnecessarily. "Your mother and sister are very upset." "I know. They've made that clear. They feel you deliberately tried to ruin Vivian's wedding." "And what do you think?" I asked. He was quiet for a long moment. "I think we didn't handle the wedding situation well. Your mother was worried about family dynamics, about keeping things smooth for Vivian's day. But maybe we went too far. Maybe the word came out sharper than I intended." "We should have included you," he said quietly. "That's what I wanted to say. We should have found a way to make everyone feel welcome. But you didn't." "No, we didn't." He looked at me directly for the first time. "And I'm sorry for that. I should have stood up for you, and I didn't." It was the first apology I had received from anyone in my family. It should have felt more satisfying than it did. "I appreciate that," I said carefully. "But Dad, this isn't just about the wedding. This is about years of being treated like I don't matter as much as Vivian. The wedding was just the final, most obvious example." "I know," he said, and he looked genuinely pained. "Your mother and we saw Vivian's confidence and success, and we wanted to encourage that. But we didn't realize how much we were neglecting you in the process." "You realized," I corrected. "You just didn't think it mattered enough to change." He didn't argue. Instead, he pulled out his phone and showed me something. It was Vivian's Instagram account. Her wedding photos had comments disabled, and where there should have been hundreds of likes, there were barely a handful. "She's devastated," he said. "All that planning, all that money, and nobody seems to care. Meanwhile, your Paris photos are everywhere. She feels like you stole her moment." "I didn't steal anything," I said firmly. "I created my own moment. The fact that people responded to it more than they did to her wedding isn't my fault." "I know that. Logically, I know that." He put his phone away. "But she's my daughter, too, and she's hurting." "So am I," said. "I've been hurting for years, and none of you noticed or cared. Now suddenly, it matters because Vivian's feelings are hurt? That's not fair, is it?" I stood up. "Dad, I'm glad you apologized about the wedding. But one apology doesn't undo decades of dismissal. And I'm not going to apologize for living my life and posting about it just because it makes Vivian feel bad." I left before he could respond. Walking back to my apartment, I felt the weight of everything settling on my shoulders. This wasn't the simple revenge fantasy I might have imagined. It was complicated and messy and painful for everyone involved. But I also felt something else. Freedom. For the first time, I wasn't trying to make myself smaller to accommodate my family's comfort. I wasn't apologizing for taking up space. Monday morning, I did the interview with Bridal Dreams magazine. Melissa, the journalist, was insightful and kind. "What made you decide to do this shoot?" she asked. "I wanted to create something beautiful for myself," I said. "I spent so much time waiting for permission to be celebrated, waiting to be seen as valuable. This was me giving myself that permission." "And the timing," she probed, "during your sister's wedding weekend?" "That was the weekend I had available," I said honestly. And symbolically, it felt right. She was having her perfect day with everyone's attention and approval. I was creating my own perfect day without needing anyone's permission. The article came out 3 weeks later. They had done a stunning layout with several of Isabel's photos, and the interview was thoughtful and well-written. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My Instagram followers jumped from 2,000 to over 100,000 in 1 week. But the real impact was in my inbox. Letters and messages from women sharing their own stories of feeling overlooked, excluded, or dismissed by family. Many had gone on to create their own moments of celebration, inspired by my Paris shoot. I read every message, often with tears in my eyes, realizing that my personal act of defiance had become something much larger. A week after the magazine came out, Vivian showed up at my apartment unannounced. I almost didn't let her in, but curiosity won again. She looked different, smaller somehow, less sure of herself. The confidence that had always defined her seemed shaken. "Can we talk?" she asked. I stepped aside. We sat in my small living room, an awkward silence stretching between us. "I read the magazine article," she finally said. "The things you said about feeling excluded, about not being celebrated. What about them?" I never thought about it like that. From my perspective, I was just living my life, being successful, getting what I worked for. I didn't realize. She trailed off, looking uncomfortable. "Didn't realize what?" I waited, saying nothing. "Didn't realize that you felt so invisible, that we made you feel that way." "I'm not apologizing for my wedding," Vivian continued, some of her old defensiveness returning, "or for my life. But I am sorry that you felt excluded for so long that you had to go to Paris alone to feel celebrated." It wasn't a perfect apology. It was wrapped in defensiveness and qualifications, but it was something. "Thank you," I said simply. "Are we ever going to be okay?" she asked. "As sisters?" I thought about that. "I don't know. Maybe. But it would require you actually seeing me as an equal, not as someone who exists in your shadow." She nodded slowly. "The thing is, your Paris photos proved you were never in my shadow. You just made it look that way by staying quiet." She left shortly after, and I sat in my apartment thinking about her words. She wasn't entirely wrong. I had made myself smaller for years, accepting the role of overlooked daughter because it seemed easier than fighting. But I wasn't that person anymore. The opportunities kept coming. By the end of the month, I had signed a contract with a luxury travel brand. The payment was more than I had made in the previous 6 months combined. A boutique hotel chain reached out about an ongoing partnership. 3 different photography workshops wanted me to teach sessions about creating viral content with authentic storytelling. My financial situation transformed overnight. For the first time in my adult life, I wasn't worried about making rent. I wasn't calculating whether I could afford groceries and camera equipment in the same week. The irony wasn't lost on me that my family's exclusion had inadvertently launched my career in a way years of hard work hadn't managed to achieve. But the most satisfying development came from an unexpected source. The photographer who had been hired to shoot Vivian's wedding reached out to me directly. Her name was Catherine. "I was contracted to photograph your sister's wedding and provide images to Bridal Dreams magazine," she wrote. "However, after your photoshoot went viral, the magazine decided to cancel the planned feature of Vivian's wedding. They said the narrative had shifted to solo celebrations, and a traditional 7-figure wedding no longer fit their editorial direction. I thought you should know, as it seems your family has been blaming you for the lack of coverage." The truth is, the magazine made a business decision based on what their readers were responding to. "Your photoshoot simply resonated more than a conventional luxury wedding." I read that message 3 times, processing the implications. Vivian hadn't just lost social media engagement. She had lost the magazine feature she had apparently been counting on, the one my parents had probably used to justify the enormous expense. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt something more complex. Not quite guilt, but an awareness of the collateral damage my one decision had created. I hadn't meant to cost Vivian her magazine feature. I had simply posted a photo I was proud of, but intentions didn't change outcomes. That evening, my mother called again. This time, her tone was different. Not angry, but almost pleading. "Juliet, Vivian is not doing well. This whole situation has really affected her." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, I didn't actually want my sister to suffer. The wedding was supposed to be her moment. She planned everything perfectly, spent so much money, and now people don't even remember it because of your Paris photos. "Mom, I didn't plan for my photos to go viral. I just posted something I was proud of." "But you had to know," she insisted. "You're a photographer." You understand social media. You had to know posting those images during her wedding would take attention away from her. I posted them 2 days after the wedding, I reminded her. And even if I had posted them the same day, I'm allowed to share my own life on my own accounts. Vivian doesn't have ownership over an entire weekend. But as her sister, I should have been invited to the wedding, I interrupted. We can't have it both ways. Either I'm enough of a sister to be expected to protect her interests, or I'm not enough of a sister to be included in major family events. You don't get to pick and choose based on what's convenient. Silence. Then, quietly, when did you become so harsh? I'm not harsh, I said. I'm just done being invisible. After we hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my small balcony, watching the Charleston evening unfold. My phone buzzed with notifications. My life had changed dramatically in just a few weeks, but the relationship with my family was irrevocably altered. There would be no going back to the way things were. That version of Juliet was gone. The next morning, I received an email from a literary agent. She had seen the Bridal Dreams article and thought my story would make a compelling book. Not just about the Paris shoot, but about the broader experience of being overlooked in your own family and finding the courage to celebrate yourself. There's a hunger for these stories, she wrote. Women reclaiming their narratives, refusing to stay small. I think you could speak to that in a powerful way. A book. I had never considered writing a book, but I realized how many stories I had. I agreed to a call, and by the end of the week, we were discussing a book proposal. The advance she mentioned was more money than I had earned in 2 years of photography work. 2 months after my Paris trip, I was invited to speak at a women's empowerment conference in Atlanta. The topic, creating your own narrative when others try to write you out. I was terrified. Public speaking wasn't something I had ever done. But Kara talked me into it. This is what you've been working toward your whole life, she said. Not the fame or the money, but the validation that your voice matters. Don't waste this opportunity. I walked onto that stage, looked out at the sea of faces, and told my story. I talked about being the invisible daughter, about the wedding exclusion, about deciding to go to Paris. I showed the photos, talked about the viral response, discussed the complicated aftermath. And when I finished, the applause was thunderous. Women came up to me afterward, sharing their own stories. Many were crying. You made me feel less alone, one woman said. I thought I was the only one whose family treated them like this. That night, I reflected on how far I had come. 3 months ago, I was the excluded sister, hurt and invisible. Now I was someone whose story resonated with thousands. But I still felt the ache of family disconnection. Success didn't erase that pain. It just made it more complicated. The book deal was finalized in September. My agent had negotiated a substantial advance, and the publisher wanted the manuscript completed within a year. My parents' reaction was predictable. My mother called, her voice tight with anxiety. You're writing a book about the family, Juliet? That's incredibly invasive. We have a right to privacy. I'm writing about my experiences, I corrected. My story, my perspective. You don't get to control that. But you'll make us look bad. You'll tell everyone about the wedding situation. I'll tell the truth about my life. If that makes you look bad, maybe you should have treated me better. She hung up. Vivian's response came via text. I can't believe you're doing this. Profiting off family drama. This is a new low. I didn't respond. But the distance from my family, while painful, was also liberating. I was building a life that didn't require their approval. In October, I was invited to appear on a national morning show to discuss the solo celebration movement. Why women are celebrating themselves. When they asked about my sister's wedding, I was careful with my words. The exclusion hurt deeply, but it also clarified some things for me. I realized I had been waiting my whole life for my family to see me as valuable, and I finally understood that I didn't need their permission to celebrate myself. And your relationship with your family now? The host asked. Complicated, I admitted. We're in a difficult place, but I'm at peace with that because I'm no longer sacrificing my own well-being to maintain a relationship that was never healthy to begin with. After the show, my Instagram followers jumped to over 300,000. More brand deals, more speaking invitations. But the real turning point came in late October when I received an email from Bridal Dreams magazine again. They wanted to do a follow-up piece, the aftermath, how one photo changed everything. They wanted to interview Vivian, too. Both sisters' perspectives. My first instinct was to refuse. But my agent saw opportunity. This could actually be powerful, she said. If you're confident in your truth, let her speak. The contrast will be revealing. I agreed, with conditions. I wanted to see Vivian's interview before publication. The magazine agreed. 2 weeks later, they sent me the transcript of Vivian's interview. I read it with a mixture of anger and sadness. She portrayed herself as the victim of my jealousy. Someone whose perfect day had been deliberately sabotaged by a bitter older sister. She claimed I had always been envious, that my Paris trip was calculated revenge. But what struck me most was how little accountability she took. In her version, she bore no responsibility for the exclusion. That was entirely my parents' decision. The lack of empathy was stark. I wrote my response carefully. I didn't attack Vivian directly. Instead, I focused on facts. The timeline, the years of dismissal, the invitation list that excluded only me, the decision to use that weekend for self-celebration because I wasn't included in family events anyway. I can't control how my sister interprets my actions, I wrote. But I can tell my truth. And my truth is that I spent 27 years being invisible in my own family. Going to Paris wasn't revenge. It was survival. It was choosing to celebrate myself when nobody else would. The article came out in mid-November, and it was explosive. The magazine had done an excellent job of presenting both perspectives without explicitly taking sides. But the reader comments made it clear who they believed. Thousands of people pointed out Vivian's lack of self-awareness. The older sister was excluded from a major family event and still found a way to celebrate life, one comment read. The younger sister had a $750,000 wedding and is mad that someone else got attention. Tell me who the real problem is. The article went viral. Vivian remained silent on social media. Her Instagram, once full of carefully curated posts about her perfect life, went quiet. My parents didn't reach out. The silence should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the final severing of already damaged ties. In December, 8 months after Paris, I signed the lease on a new apartment. A beautiful 2-bedroom place in a historic Charleston neighborhood, perfect for a home photography studio. I could afford it comfortably now. Kara helped me move in, and we celebrated with champagne. You did it, she